hello. Again, I say hello, my friends, my viewers, and our subscribers to the SosoBone Media Network and to John Sports Corner. Let me say welcome to another episode on John Sports Corner. And does he have information for you? So, let me say again, thank you for sharing, and thank you for subscribing, and for all the comments that have livened up the platform. Don't stop commenting, please. That's how you really get a chance to participate in this program with your feedback. So again, I say thank you. And at this time, I will kick over to none other than inductee into the Cricket Hall of Fame, host of John Sports Corner, John Melbourne. And over to you, John.
Thank you so much, Trevor. Good afternoon, friends and family. Again, thank you for visiting and staying with John Sports Corner on the SosoBone Media Network, the global Caribbean media capital. Now, before my special guest, Anthony Davis, competition director for the ISA Boys and Girls Track and Field Championships, joins us, um, uh, to share some of his responsibilities for champs, let me remind you to go to the Winner Circle Radio store in the SosoBone shop and get a gift from the shop. There are T-shirts, mugs, backpacks, and tote bags, sorrel, and of course, the great Jamaica Blue Mountain Coffee. And folks, also new in the shop are T-shirts with John's Sports Corner and Via Condias logos. And by the way, depending on what you select, the items all come with their respective logos. Anthony Davis, welcome to John's Sports Corner.
I'll talk to you. Thank you, John, and good evening to your listeners and viewers.
First of all, how was your Easter?
It was good. I spent it just the way I wanted. After champs, you need to wind down and rest a little bit, and I was able to do that. So I had a beautiful time, and family is good, so we are okay.
And did Hurricane Melissa impact you in any way, Anthony?
Not personally, but when I say not personally, not my property, but the fact that it affected friends and relatives in the far western side of the island, it did impact me.
Mm. And before we talk about your involvement in champs as the competition director, talk a little bit about your Olympic experience.
John, that is so far away. You're jogging my memory now. I am a part of the cohort that started training locally with Dennis Johnson. So we are the pioneering group. So you had Ruth Williams, Helen Blake, right? In terms of senior athletes, because before that, then most of the athletes representing Jamaica would have been high school athletes or the people who went overseas to study at the university. So then it started a program at CAS. So you had Belcher, you had Walter Robinson, you had Lorna Shelton, Regina Montague. Those are some of the names that come to mind readily of the early days. And so I made the team for the Pan Am Games. I was on the European circuit for maybe 5 or 6 years. And then I made it as a reserve to the 1980 Olympics, right? And so I didn't actually run in the Olympics, but I was a reserve for the 4x1 and 4x4. But I made it to the semifinals in the Pan Am Games. I was a semifinalist in the CAC Games in the 200 meters, and I won I think a bronze medal in the CAC University Games. So in a nutshell, that's my athletic exploit, and I would have won several meets on the circuit and several meets locally.
The the trophies and medals that you have won over the years, Anthony, do you still have them? Do you still store them?
Yeah, yes, I have some before. As a matter of fact, I was downstairs just now and decided to move up to come closer to the modem because I was getting unstable signal. So some of the trophies that I won on the European circuit are in my study. But at this stage of the game, I have stopped collecting trophies and start collecting accreditation cards.
Yeah.
If you look at my door, you will see scores of accreditation card to the number of events that I've been to over time.
Oh, okay. And I asked you that question, because a few weeks ago we had Lalan Gordon from Trinidad on,
Mm.
and he said he didn't know you were Trevor, his Olympic medalist. So
I
what?
can understand that because sometimes, every minute you try to declutter and you open a drawer and then you see a medal or some award that you got, and you may look at it and smile and you put it back and you don't remember again for another umpteen years. So I can understand
Yeah.
somebody saying that.
Let's talk champs now, Anthony. And when do you begin preparing for champs
Uh,
2026?
well, it's pretty much the same every year. We have an organizing committee, and plus or minus a week or two, we would start our preparations, let us say late October, sometime mid-October. And so it's the entire committee that comes together. But of
Hmm.
course, before you start to have formal meetings, there are little things that you have on your checklist that you start to, get done and mark them off before you have the first formal meeting. And then in the formal meetings that we have, you have persons dealing with security portfolio, you have hospitality. I am the chair for the technical committee. And then you have accreditation, you have magazine, we have a chairman who pulls everything together. You have security, both in terms of overall security chief, but then you also have police and you have private security. So I think, and then we have media relations, and we have sponsorship, somebody responsible for sponsorship. So those are all the units that combine to get the production going for the event that you know as champs.
And because my next question was, what were some of the areas that you had to assess or address first when you start to prepare for champs for the following year?
Okay, I think if we get to the real beginning, immediately champs is finished, you're going to book the stadium for the next year. So if the champs may finish on Saturday, maybe by Wednesday, Thursday of the week after, you book the stadium because you can't start planning and you don't sure you have a venue, right? So the first
Hmm.
thing the first thing you want to do is book the venue. And then what we then do is we have a checklist and we start going through the checklist. So you look at what is it that you have in stock that is carrying over from last year. So for example, we will buy medals in batches that to last 3 years. So you have to look to see, okay, when is this going to run out? So right now, we have medals for next year, so it's next year before you need to order medals. Then one of the things that we all do is that you listen to the comments. So during the championships, I have my laptop, I have the schedule, and I'm looking on the races, and I look to see where we lost time and why that is important. It gives me an indication if the allocated time is adequate for all that needs to be done between coming out of
Hmm.
the call room, reporting to the starter, getting them introduced, and then getting them to run. if we can achieve it comfortable, then I will leave it alone. If we are having a challenge consistently, then I will have to look at whether I need to add a minute or two. So you have a constant assessment. You listen to some of the patrons and you hear some of the comments and we take them serious. So you look, what is it that we can bring on board based on the comments that the people get? And so those are the things that you start looking at. So we look at the schedule. Okay, the schedule is okay. We have tweaked it. We are going to accept it as it is and continue. However, when we have a draft, I tend not to circulate the draft early. Why is that
Mm.
we have zone meetings and we have a zone meeting at Woolmer's usually in December. And then come January, we have a zone meeting maybe again at Woolmer's for the Kingston because the Kingston population is huge. Then we go to Mandeville and we have one, and then we go across to Montego Bay and we have one there. So at the zone meetings, that's when you get feedback from the coaches. That's when you tell them of any new initiative that you're going to have. And
Mm-hmm.
they will say to you, listen, people, last chance, this is what happened. This can be done better. Why don't you consider doing this? And after you have accumulated all those suggestions, then you act. What is important for me to share with the listeners that the suggestions are dealt with at two levels. So there are some suggestions that the organizing committee can act on immediately that we accept it on board. There are some suggestions that ISO, the body, the general membership of principals, is a policy decision and they have to make a ruling on that. So not because we hear and the question that it is not action is not because we don't think it's important, but the timing.
Mm.
We might when we have the zone meetings, the general body is not going to meet before champs. So it as good a suggestion it is, unless they're going to call an emergency meeting, we might very well have to wait until next year.
Mm.
Those are the tweaks that you need to look at. We have to also look at the budget because everything is a cost factor. You have to look at the sponsorship. And when I'm these things that I'm explaining, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm involved in it. I sit at the
Right, right.
I sit at the table, and so
Yeah.
you listen to the reports. Sponsorship is down. We have lost one sponsorship. We need to make up for that sponsorship, that sort of thing. So you hear those things, but as it relates to the competition, then what we have is we have qualifying times and numbers. So
Mm-hmm.
what we do is for the sprints, we take the top a ranking system. So we take
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
64.
Mm-hmm.
However, we have zone championships. And because the playing field is not level, there are some areas which are not as strong as others. And if we were to just go the top 64 straight across the board, you might find that there are some people from some zones who might never make it. So what we do is we say the winners in the sprints, first and second in the sprints in all the zones are get an automatic entry into champs. So
Mm-hmm.
it's 56 plus 8. And then we have different numbers for the 800, the sprint hurdles, the medley relays, the 4x1 relays. So we have those numbers. So what it is that all the development meets that we have throughout the year, we keep records of those. And then there's a ranking system. So
Mm-hmm.
you could be, for example, you could be number 64 this week, and next week you are number 70,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because there are persons who put in better performance. So we have a threshold. What it is that if we don't get enough for the threshold in terms of the time, then we bring up other persons to keep the numbers. So you find that because we had COVID and a number of schools did not participate, the number of athletes coming to champs was pretty much the same because you're going to take the best, the top 64.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
No, when I say you're going to take the top 64, the other thing we must remember is no school can have more than two participants in
Mm-hmm.
in any event, regardless of the
Right.
event. So even
Mm-hmm.
if your athletes produce the sixth best time in let's say the 100 meters, you can only choose two.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So,
Yeah.
so that is in terms of gathering the data, and then that list is published. And you have your deadlines when entry should come in, when entry close, and then when it starts to get down to crunch time now, that is the Sunday before champs. We
Right.
we have a seeding committee, and we look at the data, and it is clean, but what we do is we look at the top 8, the top 16, right, or the top 16, top 32, and then we rank the athletes based on their time. But sometimes you may actually have to, that an athlete may have produced a time um, that is outside the win reading, and so
Right.
you have to weigh them sometimes. So now at the end of the seeding committee, that schedule is going to change again, and change in the sense that you may have a preliminary round that has been eliminated. So, for example, the class one 800, you may not have enough, so it goes straight to a semifinal round. We may not have enough in the class one girls high jump, so there's no prelims, so it goes straight.
Mm-hmm.
So the schedule is adjusted in that manner. Now,
Mm-hmm.
although the schedule is adjusted because of the number of entries you have, you still can't adjust the time, because you'd have circulated to the coaches and they would have prepared the athletes. So the 100 meters semifinals is going to be 4 o'clock. But
Right.
because you have done some adjustment, you could actually run that semifinals at 3:30. But you can't do that. You have to keep it
Mm-hmm.
as scheduled, because the coaches are very meticulous. They prepare the athletes, right? And so, they have their bus, all of that. This is when we're going to take you down to the stadium. This is what we are going to do. So those are
Right.
some of the things. So when that is done, you have the people doing data that's headed by Gart Gale, J3 is president, and he goes through the data and produce something we call a heat sheet. So that is what gives you the number of heats in an event. So you may very well see 100 meters, prelim 1 of 8, 2 of 8, and it gives you the lane, the school, and the name of the athletes. And then
Mm-hmm.
at the top of the heat sheet, it also tells you how do you advance to the next round, whether it is the winner and X fastest qualifier, or the top 4 or top 6 or whatever it is. Those
Right. Right.
are the things. So for the coaches, there comes a time when they schedule is not absolute gospel. Have to look on the heat sheet, because you have to know and instruct your athlete. How do you qualify to go to the next round? So the athlete who is doing monthly events, what would happen is that they have to conserve and do just enough to qualify. So there's no point knocking out yourself if you don't have to. But
Yeah.
like this year in the 100 meters, 10.5 just about made it to the semis. So you can't, you can't, you get to the stage where you can't hold back, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you hold back, you're not going to advance. So these
Yeah.
are, some of the things that happen. And so we have the heat sheet. Before actually, we prepare a call room schedule, because the coaches need to know when to send their athletes to the call room. So the call
Mm-hmm.
room, for the sake of the public, is the assembly room, where the athletes assemble. Their numbers is checked. You make sure that they're in the right event, because it's possible you can turn up for the wrong event, right? So you have to make sure, so that's the event that they are for. You make sure that their numbers, the 4 corners, are pinned. You have to check the nails in their shoe to make sure it's illegal. You have to check the number and spikes in the shoe to make sure it is 5 nail in each foot. These are things that the call room you have to do.
Yeah.
There's some prohibitive items that you cannot take into the call room. So you can't take cell phone, you can't take cameras. So we
Okay.
no, we ask the coaches to keep the possession because we don't want the responsibility of taking these things from youngsters to hold them for you to come back after a race. So we ask
Right.
the call room, we just run in gear. So when they come to the call room, we have the time. So you get an announcement, call room open for the 100 meters class one boys. And then you get call room close 100 meters. No, when the call room close, that's it. You can't come back in. So you
Mm.
have to pay attention to the call times and report as required. Then they do the checks, and then we have competition stewards. These are the persons who you see leading the athletes into the competition area. So you will have somebody in an official shirt, and you have a line of athletes behind them going to whether they're going to shot put, pole vault, discus, 100, 800, they go to different sections. Now, there is some precision in it that I need to share. So we have to calculate how long it takes you from the call room to get to the competition site.
Okay.
So as the competition director, I'm sitting upstairs and I have the call room schedule. So I know at 10:05 I should be seeing a race coming through the tunnel. If
Mm-hmm.
if that race is not coming through the tunnel, I need to find out how far are they, because a delay could mean a delay in the start. Right? So you follow that up, and then when they get to the start, they have just enough time to fix their blocks, take off the clothes, and the starter take control of them, and you send off the race. So again, at the start, the starter's assistant will check to make sure that they're in the right lane. They check to make sure that you are wearing your school uniform. If it's a relay, the four persons must wear the same uniform. These are in the rules, right?
No,
So
before you move from relays to
yeah.
Anthony, um, something I didn't know that once you name the order in the relay, you can't change it.
Yes, because all right, there's logic to it. If you put four athletes on the track, um, John, Paul, Harry, Jim is going to be running first leg, second leg, ankle leg, and you give that information to television. You give that information to the
Oh.
in-stadium announcers. He,
Mm-hmm.
he would be saying Harry's on the first leg when Harry's actually on the third leg.
Okay.
Right? So, and the coaches, in trying to steal an advantage on their competitor, they will announce their team, submit their team, and when they see what their competitor is, they say, no, you run a third leg instead. Or, believe it or not, sometimes the athletes decide that
Yeah.
John is a better on the ankle. Forget what the coach tell him, let John run the ankle. So these little things happen. So World Athletics has a rule. You have to do your declaration an hour before. Now,
Yeah.
if if you make your declaration and when you go out on the track, you change the order, the track umpire is going to pick up that order and you are going to be disqualified.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't change the running order again. You have to go into competition as is and hope for the best. So yes,
Now,
that is accurate.
you talk about checking spikes in the call room. Something else I didn't know that apparently, and I heard the our commentators at Champs talking about it. So I need to ask you that now you have different spikes for different events, and if you have on the wrong spike, you get disqualified.
No, not the wrong spike. All right. The wrong length nail, you
Yeah,
won't be disqualified, but you will be told to change a shoe or change a nail. Because there are some athletes who believe that a long nail will give them advantage.
yeah.
That's their belief. Reality is that the longer nails on the synthetic track contributes to damaging the track and it putting you at your health at risk.
Mm,
So these are scientifically proven that here is the length nails that you should use for this design shoe. So we actually have a spike tool, a spike gauge. So we measure
hmm
it. If it's over the limit, then we say to the athlete, you need to go get the proper nails. You can either change the shoe or change the nails, but you won't be disqualified. But if you get down on the track for some reason, they could bar you from actually running. But the role of the official is not to disqualify people or to make them not participate. Our role is to make sure they participate on an even platform. Everybody have the good opportunity to produce their best results. So our first attempt is how do you get the proper shoe to fit, not to disqualify you immediately.
Mm, mm. Because I don't know. I thought I heard that you have to have different like spikes for long jump like for sprinters for long distance runners. you
Yes,
know,
you
and I
do.
said to myself, when I used to run in 1957, 58, 59, going, I
A
had
spikes,
one.
a
Man,
spikes without
I had to
spikes.
borrow somebody's spikes. I didn't have a pair of spikes.
I'm with you. When I just started, I actually got a loan, but later on in life, what it is that you find out that the average athlete will have two pairs of shoe,
Mm,
one for training and one for competition. And then at the end of the year, the one that was a competition shoe become your training shoe because
hmm
the shoe will get slack from the constant pounding and that sort of thing. So
hmm
you're not likely to carry a spikes for 2 seasons unless you don't have the money. If you can afford it, you're going to change the spikes. But yes, you
mm,
have different spikes. So for example, the high jumper, his shoe will have a nail in the heel because they're going to rock back,
yeah.
right? The triple jump, the sole of the spike. If you look at some of the spikes, you will see a difference in the sole. So but some people use it as stipulated by the manufacturer, and some people just use as spikes. So you
Mm,
find that the person who is a distance runner, his spikes may have a slight wedge. You find that the person who is a sprinter has just the heel and the plate under the toe because you want the lightest possible thing. The athlete who is doing the steeplechase is going to have a spikes that has a significant amount of mesh that the water can, go through the shoe
mm, mm,
as quickly as possible. The
mm.
javelin thrower spikes is going to be different. The shot putter shoe is going to be different, right? So there is specialist shoe, and the shoe company go through significant R&D to ensure that your equipment enhance your performance.
And just for our listeners, when you say R&D, it means research and development.
Yeah, yes. My apologies. I share this with you, John. The real elite athletes, sometimes they have to return the shoe to the manufacturer after they wear it a certain time, because they are going to examine it to look how the shoe wears, because it
hmm
tells how their foot plant, and then like the shoe for athlete A might not suit athlete B
hmm
when you get to the elite level because it is made specifically for that athlete. So
Right.
the manufacturer will come, somebody come, they give you a mold, you step on the mold, you get the impression of your foot, pretty much like how the dentist would take an impression. And
hmm
goes back to the respective shoe manufacturer, and they bill you a shoe to suit you. So it's custom made shoe some of these athletes are wearing.
I'm going back up a little here, Anthony. Something I didn't know that you mentioned earlier, that you had to book the stadium right away for the following year. I thought it was automatic that, champs is going to be run at a certain time.
No, but John, not we know Champs is going to run at a certain time, but everybody have different needs.
Yeah.
The stadium has clients, and you could very well have a client who wants a thing and you don't want a clash, right? So if you take too long, because Champs is pretty much a national event, the
hmm
people at the stadium may reserve a day. But it is the onus is on us to advise the stadium in writing, please book the
Yeah.
4 days for champs.
Oh,
That we
right.
book a
Okay.
4 days. So everything else after that has to go work around champs. And remember also, champs has gotten to the stage where you don't want to have an event in the arena while champs is going on. If at all possible, you don't want to have any event in the swimming pool because the number of parking space is limited.
Mm,
So when you have, especially you have a bumper crowd on a Friday or a Saturday, and you have 30,000 people coming in, and so these are the things which we need to know. And the safest thing to do is to book the venue early.
mm. No, you can never anticipate everything. But on the final day of champs, there was a 2 hour rain delay. How do you make up for that time?
All right, it's interesting that you asked that question because the year before, I think, yeah, the year before, we turned up one morning at Champs to find out that there was some bubbles on the track and some repair work was done in the night. We didn't know that was going to be done. And then when we got there, the rubber was not hard, so we had to delay for a longer time to allow the rubber to dry to then start. So we had to be shuffling with the schedule and so. And then it dawned on me, I'm saying, but we need to have a time loss policy. If you lose an hour, if you lose 45 minutes, how do you make up with it? What's the protocol for adjusting the schedule and advising the coaches? There, if we have a system, you need one, two, three, then we are not asking each other on the day how we go about it. So when I actually was downstairs and I got a call to say, Anthony, there's lightning. Now there is a rule that says half an hour after the last visible flash before you can consider starting. So what was
Mm,
described to me was pretty bad. And you work with a team, so there are a lot of people with lots of experience. So they say, Anthony, it has to stop. So you go to the announcer, you says, listen, we check the Met Office. The Met Office has said to us, it's a system, it's going to be with us for, I think, maybe the next 2 hours or so. And so we announce immediately that the meet has been suspended and it is likely to restart at such and such a time. Now, after that announcement was made, the next thing to do is we have WhatsApp group with the coaches. So the next thing to do is send that notice to the coaches in the coaches group to say the meet has been suspended. We'll advise you. We'll keep monitoring, and based on information from the Met Office, we'll advise you. That once that went out, the next thing now is to adjust the schedule. But you're adjusting the schedule, not knowing when you can start back. Right?
yeah.
So you have to make a guess that, okay, the Met Office says, for I think they may have said 2 hours, so you're monitoring it. Because one of my colleagues had an app and they could tell you any lightning flash within a 5 mile radius of the stadium. So
Mm,
you want to start the schedule, but remember we can't start until half an hour after the last flash. So
mm,
if we decide that we are going to start back at 6, but at quarter to 6 you have a flash,
mm,
that schedule is of no use. So
mm,
those were some of the things that we had to do. Luckily, based on the Met Office, and then you could see like the dark clouds disappearing, and you could see like coming over the stadium was clear skies. So we quickly adjusted the schedule. Now, in adjusting the schedule, you have to make sure World Athletics have some minimum standard between events to give people adequate recovery time. So you have to ensure you satisfy that requirement. We have to ensure that we can do the presentations, and we need to start back early enough that we are not there until 12 o'clock in the night.
right.
So, those are the parameters that we have to be working with. Luckily, we had a team. I had lots of support. We went through, we made the adjustment. We never had to readjust. And then you have now to advise the coaches so they have enough time to prepare the athletes because they have to warm up again.
Right.
Some we had to send back because we couldn't keep them in the stadium for their own safety. So
Mm-hmm.
then you have to give them time to warm up, and we were able to go. Now, when we resume, we have to work with everybody to try and get maximum coordination. So if a race is to go off every 5 minutes, it has to go off every 5 minutes because remember, every minute that we lose, we are running later into the night. Uh,
Right.
there is a cost for light. We need more light. So those
Mm-hmm.
are some things that we'll have to do. And remember, it is being televised. So if we run too late, the television is going to leave us, right? Because they have a tight schedule. So it is not as simple as it looked. You say, oh, there's a pause and we start back. There is a lot of things that you had to go through to make sure, that we could get it up and running.
Then suppose let's say suppose that rain delay was like 4 hours, Anthony. What would you have to suspend champs and then finish it the following day or something like that?
No, the duration of champs is etched in stone. So
Mm.
Tuesday to Saturday. It cannot go beyond Saturday. Right. I can't think of any situation where we would make a ruling to say go until Sunday because remember, teams coming from all over the country, they
Yeah.
would have booked. Nobody have extra money, so you can't then tell them they need to stay an extra night, and extra night means extra food.
Right. Right.
What we'd have to do is look at where we are, how many finals or semifinals would have run. There are some events like the younger events, like say the class three or class four girls, they have more time in school. So we might scrap those events where they are. But the older students who are going to graduate and leave, this is their last year at Champs, we'll try to see if we can have those events, right?
Mm.
And complete them. And at the end, I can't remember the exact formula now, but at the end of the day, we look at the stage where the competition, how we award the points, and then we decide on a winner for the event.
Mm.
The easiest thing to say is think of like the Duckworth Lewis system in cricket, where if
Which I hate.
I have no comments, but it it's the fairest way we have now to decide on a winner because of circumstances beyond our control.
Mm. Mm. And you touched on it because I was going to ask you about your responsibilities once the meet has started, and I think you kind of touched on that. But there was a lot of discussion around Champs 2025 and the numerous false starts. What measures can you do you, or do you know what measures were taken to address that this year?
All right, to begin with, we had to during last year we had to meet with the starters to try and ascertain what was the challenge, whether it was an equipment challenge, whether it was personal challenge, what it is. And so we got an assurance that the equipment was properly calibrated. And so we didn't sign off, we couldn't pin down a precise reason. But in anticipation of 2026, the J3 gave a commitment that they would have had a technician from Finish Links to to come down because the equipment goes overseas to be calibrated. It come back in transit. All kind of things can happen in storage.
Mm-hmm.
We had a technician specifically to troubleshoot on the day during the 5 days. Sorry, the 5 days of champs. And so that was one of the things we put in place to mitigate against the number of false starts. And so while the false starts would have been less, I will admit to you, there were still some issues that we need to sort out, which appears to be equipment related.
Yeah, because I saw where several races were called back, and then a green card issued, and I said, "But if it's a green card, why didn't they just let the race run?"
No, because remember, our duty is to make sure that everybody has a fair opportunity to achieve their best results. So
Mm-hmm.
the starter wears a headset. He could very well have heard a beep. That because remember the starting blocks are pressure sensitive, and
Yeah.
when you plant your feet on the blocks, you would have activated it. If you ease the pressure, then it's going to register. But the starter has the discretion to say, whether it was an attempt to report before the gun, and the starter has that discretion. Now, when they check the reading, they might be convinced that you shouldn't charge anybody for it. They have that discretion, and I can't overrule that starter. So they decide that, listen, there is no point in charging any athletes for this offense, so you just get the green card.
Mm-hmm. During the boys' class 1 200 heats, there were 3 different races in which athletes breached the zero point 0.1
Zero.
starting rule.
Yeah, yeah.
One was disqualified, one got a yellow card, and one got a green card. And I'm trying to figure, if they breached the zero point 0.1, why was one disqualified?
All right. The truth, John, is that there are some things we still have to evaluate because what you described to me has been brought to my attention, and there is a level of inconsistency. So at this point in time, that's all I can say, that we have to go through, look at the data, see, get an explanation from the starter, because without hearing from them why they made that decision, it's difficult
Mm-hmm.
come to any conclusion. And this is why I did an interview during the meeting, and I was trying to explain to people that the athlete who appears to lift the hand off the ground or leave the block first is not necessarily the athlete who have committed an offense.
Right, right.
Because you see me leave the block, but the athlete I'm in lane 5, the athlete in lane 7 ease the pressure up. So the starter is going to charge him based on the start information system. But
Mm-hmm.
you see me as the culprit having left the blocks.
Mm-hmm.
The false start was triggered before I actually left the blocks. Right. So these are some things, and we had voice recording where we tried to, play it during the time to educate the spectators to say, look, this is the situation, and
Yeah.
so you have to, because the World Athletics rule is, if the start information system is working, you must use that as your guide. Unless
Mm-hmm.
unless you declare that it is malfunctioning, you have to follow the reading from it, or it would have breached the World Athletics rule.
There were a couple of instances where athletes, sometimes I guess they didn't hear the recall gun and finish the race. Should an official maybe be placed, say, 30, 40 yards from the start, that in case that happens, they can signal to them to stop?
We have recall starters, right? And so if the person on the rostrum, we refer to him as the starter. But in on the ground, you have 2 recalls. Sometimes,
Mm,
depending on the stagger, you could very well have 3 recalls. So yes, we have persons who can fire again, but the reality is, and it happens at all levels, the athletes are so focused and they have such tunnel vision. Once they are trained to report to the pistol, they go. And remember, we have a very noisy set of spectators. So
mm-hmm.
sometimes, because I'm sure you hear quite often the announcer appealing, quiet for the start, please, quiet.
Yeah, yeah.
I share something with you that is funny. I growing up in Jamaica, this is what I'm accustomed to. Quiet for the start, and nobody is keeping on the noise. And I went to Sweden. And when the starter said, stand behind your blocks, it's like a blanket fell on the stadium, and the silence frightened me. Because nobody spoke, nobody did anything. And like,
Yeah,
this level of discipline is not what I'm accustomed to. So the silence, when I tell you, it frightened me. I just picture in your mind, you're coming from Jamaica, you're a young athlete coming up, and you're accustomed to hear quiet for the start, quiet for the start. And sometimes to not hold up the race, they start the race with a distraction. So
yeah,
this happened to some athletes, but Merlin Ati almost finished a race, I think in May.
yeah.
You
Mm,
remember
hmm.
because you just didn't hear because you are so focused on getting to the finish line. You don't hear. But we do have provisions in place to recall.
That's interesting because in the race I'm talking about, I think it was a young lady from Excelsior who won the race.
Yes,
And she had to run again, and she ran a faster time.
yes.
And I
Um,
think Bruce James said, "Oh, that was conditioned."
no, but that's what it is because what happened is that the coaching is very scientific. And one of the things that I know from and comparing when I used to run to now, it's totally different. Back then, when you finish a workout, Dennis would do a pulse count. And once your pulse come back to the rest rate, I don't remember what it was, when it come back to what it should be when you're resting, you had to run again.
Yeah.
Right. So this is what they are accustomed to. So once that young lady pulse came back to the rest, then she was able to go and the condition was so good. She ran better because remember, that's the importance of warming up. So
So then who would check this pulse rate then?
no. I'm just saying in training, but the fact
Oh,
that she
okay, okay,
came back because
okay,
that's how we
okay.
train. So you check the
Mm,
pulse rate in training, and once the pulse rate go back, then the coach says time to run again. You don't get
yeah.
indefinite rest. So the fact that when she came back and was required to run again, she had recovered sufficiently to give her best performance.
Mm. And I also thought, that once you stepped out of a lane or a lane violation, it was automatic disqualification. But that is not necessarily so, Anthony.
No, okay. In the simplest terms, if you step out of a lane and you don't gain an advantage. So, for example, if you go to the outer side of your lane, like you're running in lane 5 and you were to step out in lane 6,
Yeah.
you would not be automatically disqualified because you are putting yourself at an advantage. If you're in lane 5 and you stepped into lane 4, as simple as it may sound, you would have gained an advantage. However, you are allowed one step.
Mm,
One step, you will not be disqualified. But that one step is recorded against you. So if you take one step in the prelim and then you take one step in the semis, you're gone. You're not going to the final.
right.
It accumulates like the referee red card or yellow card.
Mm, mm,
It goes further. If the lead-off runner commits an infraction and the third leg runner commits an infraction, that's it for your team. Two for the team,
mm,
right? So, so the results will show that you had a lane infraction. So yes, but there have been rule change because World Athletics, every Congress, they review the rules and they institute new rules. Now, one of the latest rules that they have is that in the past, if the baton dropped after it was exchanged, and by exchange mean the incoming runner handed it to the outgoing runner who received it and it fell. Wherever it fell, you would have to go back to that part, pick up the baton, and run again.
mm,
Rule has been adjusted. So wherever it fell, as long as the exchange took place, you can pick it up from that point and continue running.
mm.
right? So these are some changes because in everything the rules are designed to get the best performance, is not necessarily to penalize any athlete.
You know, comparing champs 1959 when I went at Sabina Park to today is like night and day. And I'm talking about medical care, psychological attention provided athletes. Each day are champs.
Yes, and if you notice, if you were to go to the warm-up there are rehydration stations there because
Hmm.
when we I, I think you belong to this generation, John. I certainly do. We used to talk about getting stitch, so you wouldn't drink.
Yeah. Yes,
You
yes,
would not
yes.
drink before you run because you complain that you're going to get stitch if you drink. Now the athlete is drinking, taking a mouthful just before they go in the blocks.
Yeah.
So science has proven that you need to be rehydrated, and so coaches pay attention to rehydration coming into the championships. So you don't wait until the day of the championships because you know when you feel thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So you have to be rehydrating consistently. And so we have rehydration fluid in the warm-up area. The schools have their own. And then when you come into the competition arena inside the stadium, we provide you with liquid. You may notice that when they cross the finish line, they'll get a drink. But
Yeah.
what you may not notice is that at the shot put, discus, javelin, there is some round igloos like drums that have
Hmm.
rehydration fluid separate and apart from what we provide for the officials because their
Mm.
health is of utmost importance because if you're not rehydrated, you can't concentrate, you're liable to get muscle cramp, you're certainly not going to perform at your best. So we have to
Yes.
make, you know,
It's funny you talk about this stitch because I mean I played football and even at halftime I wouldn't drink anything.
yeah, I remember those days you just refused. Little did we know what we were doing to our bodies.
Right?
Yeah.
Was there something or anything that happened that you did not anticipate during these champs, Anthony?
Um, no, it, in every industry you have occupational hazard, and
Mhm.
there is a theory that if it can happen, it will happen. So being in the sport for so long, well, not just me, the entire team is hardly likely that any year you are going to see anything you have never seen before.
Mm,
Hardly likely. Maybe what you see you have never seen before is the frequency of an activity or the volume, but the actual activity itself is not surprising to most persons.
mm,
And we have full medical coverage. We have medical in the warm-up area. And the medical that you see that is very visible is for the athletes. We have medical for the spectators. So if you
mhm,
got ill, there's a medical post in the bleachers, there's a medical post in the grandstand. So while everybody is familiar with seeing the cadets running to retrieve athletes, there is provisions for spectators. And
mm,
we have a cadre of cadets, we have medical professionals at Stadium East, we have them inside the bleachers, we have them at the finish line, we have them at the 200 meter, we have them just behind the long jump pit. So no group of officials really need to run far to retrieve any athletes. They are strategically placed around the track, and they all have radar contact. The medical room is fully equipped, and because they are stationed in there, what we do is we put a monitor. So if they have a minute, they can actually be watching the event because not just for entertainment they're watching, but they can see if somebody went down and the response time, let us say somebody went down on a backstretch and the
Mhm.
response time from the medical post at the 200-meter start is not prompt. They can read it to say, look, an athlete is down on the backstretch. So
Mhm.
having a monitor serves several purposes.
I've seen some literature recently in suggesting there's a waning interest in champs. And I know because of Hurricane Melissa, some schools were unable to participate in champs this year. Could that be a factor impacting this year's attendance?
Everything that I can say on that is speculation. You really have to spend some time looking at it. All right. So to begin with, and historically, we have never had large turnout on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
as long as I can remember, Tuesday was always free. Now, in trying to make Tuesday more attractive or Wednesday more attractive, we moved the 100 meters in line with international
Mm-hmm.
standards. So it was not done willy-nilly. We moved it to Wednesday because in every major track meet, what you find is that the 100 meters is the first event. Whether
Mm-hmm.
Olympics and Games, you get the 100 meters out of the way. Uh,
Right.
that has not been a sufficient pull to have the turnstile turning over at the level that we would want. So that is a, that is a challenge from creation.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have different demographics. Back in the days when Friday, Saturday was jam pack, like if you didn't leave your home by 10 o'clock, and you attempt to leave your home at 1 o'clock to get to the stadium, you're going to have a problem getting in. Those
Mm-hmm.
those days are gone. We now have live broadcasts, and so persons have the option of staying home with a beer in a recliner and watch the event. The
Mm-hmm.
television coverage is very, very good. You have the benefit of replay. You have the benefit of the analysis from the person in studio. So that's an attraction. Some of the youngsters are not necessarily as interested in going to watch sport. And I why I say this, they are there's a decline in attendance at sports day. I actually know of a case where I saw a youngster and I'm saying, why are you home? And he said, oh, it's a holiday. And I said, what do you mean holiday? He said, yes, it's sports day. So, no, there's no youngster. Even if your parents were strict, you'd find a way to hide and go to sports day.
Yeah.
There is no youngster who is going to say sports day mean a holiday for you to stay home. I've seen a Manning Cup football game going on next door, and you say to the person, "Your school is playing next door," and say, "Yeah, no." I say, "What that mean?" "Yeah, no, they're playing. You're not going, no, right?"
Yeah.
And so the video games is very appealing.
Mm-hmm.
The hustle of getting into the stadium and then getting home for some persons is a turnoff.
Mm-hmm.
For the diehard, they want to be there because it's a way of socializing. It's a way of
Mm-hmm.
friends, walking to the stadium, walking home. Because I remember we used to look forward to our prefect coming to the class and letting us practice the cheer, and you got a sheet of paper with your cheer.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's how I grew up. And then
Yeah.
we used to march single file from Melbourne Park up to the stadium, and that's why KC has now taken over the southern section because when we walk from North Street and Melbourne or Elliston Road and we come up, when we get to the stadium, that's the first entrance we go to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So now the tradition has changed. We stop and we pick up the St. Jude's girls. Alpha is now doing better.
Alpha.
What we're hoping for is that Georges, who is also doing well, may decide that they are going to match the stadium and the Georges boys will pick up the Alpha girls and walk up. So
Yeah.
has to be a bigger appeal to the students. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I am not sold on the idea that the cost is a deterrent, because sometimes when you look at the phone that some of these people have, and they are on it all the while, which means it's not just an expensive phone, but they have unlimited credit, although it
Mm-hmm.
might be a gift. But so I wouldn't, while it may be a factor that the costs influence the low turnout, it's a combination of things. It wouldn't be one thing. And certainly for this year, because I had friends who kept telling me, you're going to have a thunderstorm this evening. I hope you can keep the meet on schedule to make sure when the thunderstorm come, you're already on time. And
Mm-hmm.
then when they said to me, in Pembroke Hall it's raining hard, in Duane Park it's raining hard, we're having a storm in Barbican. Persons in those areas, by that time it was not yet affecting the stadium, but persons in those areas having that experience would not venture to leave home. So
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
by the time the bad weather got to the stadium, persons already decide that, let me open a beer. So, those are factors, that because, but it was significant when you look in the stands. That's not what I'm accustomed to seeing. But it's not just champs. There are several other meetings who struggle to get patrons out. Years ago, when you go to Gibson, the bleachers was full. No, you make it free, and it's a handful of people. The
Yeah.
major inter meetings, you literally have to bust in people. So I think going forward, what we may have to do is invite corporate Jamaica. You have a company in Mandeville. You bus in some school kids along with your staff, and we have some incentive for them to come in to get back that vibe, because the overseas people support champs, but that's a different
Mm.
generation. They're all baby boomers, right?
Yeah.
The younger person, no, that interest is just not there.
What you think if they were to move the hundreds back to Friday, because people don't have to go to work on Saturday, it might generate that crowd again Friday evening going into Saturday?
There are two things that we have to look at. The crowd, the income, and the health of the athletes. And so we have to balance it. I can tell you that having the 100 on the first day is pleasing to the coaches. The thing about it is that some events you have to be careful how you pack the events into Friday to say you're trying to get the crowd, because remember, you have some natural doubles. So if
Yeah.
you have 100, 200, 200, 400, maybe 400, 815, you can't have them all on 2 days,
Mm-hmm.
because there will not be enough recovery time. And the other thing that I am very mindful of and hope that we can resolve it is that at Champs, we have 4.5 full days. Saturday we start. We start at 1.
Mm-hmm.
We have 4 full days. We're talking about an average from 9 until maybe 9. It, while we do have maybe a 2 hour break on some days, we have a 2 hour break from running from the track, but the field events people are still going. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I am hoping that at some point we can devise a schedule where you have a distinct morning schedule from an evening schedule. So you end at 11 or 12, and then you come back at 4. The benefit of that is that your officials are not as stressed, because on Thursday evening or Friday evening, after 4 hard days, sometimes it is fatigue that affects the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's all it is. People just tired. I mean, if an umpire out there, some decision maybe because he's just standing there too long. So, we have to look at some of those and try and adjust the schedule. But as it is, we have to strike a balance to ensure that we keep the health of the student in mind, We have
Mm-hmm.
we have to give the coaches the option because it's all about points. So we have to space the event in such a way that you can comfortably double. If you cram it, then persons are going to say, Anthony, what kind of schedule is that? We can't double. Just during champs, remember I told you that you get suggestions all the while and you note them.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I had an exchange with a coach, and he said to me, the high jump is too close to the long jump. For class, I think it must be class two. And I said to him, we can't facilitate every possible double.
Mm-hmm.
How about you know the schedule beforehand? Instead of asking me to change the schedule, how about you decide which event the athlete is going to enter? And he, and he laughed because he knows you have the schedule. You give another athlete a chance, but because they're trying to score maximum points, what they do is say, I want to put the best athlete in the long jump and put back the same athlete in the high jump to get maximum points. So I say, okay, focus on the long jump. I give your teammate an opportunity to do the high jump. So then they come
Yeah.
to you. Um, the schedule is crazy. Change the schedule. But
Mm.
John, you know, I've learned over time, and I see evidence of it almost every year. More often than not, the request to change the schedule depends on the strength of a particular team. So if
Mm.
if the coach have a good quarter mile, he is going to tell you that, listen, this quarter mile schedule is crazy. I needed to move it here and there. And if you
Mm.
what you need to do is make sure that it meet the minimum requirement in terms of the number of hours between the rounds and the other events. And next year, when he doesn't have a good quarter mile, he has no interest in where the quarter mile is run, right? And I've seen it over and over. So every time,
Yeah.
most times a coach will come to me making suggestion to change the schedule, I quietly look to see who he has in the race. Because that's what the come down stuff.
I guess the coach is looking out for his athlete.
No, and you can't blame them, right?
Mm.
But again, I'm saying, and the coach in question, you know, he knew what he was doing, you know, because when I pointed out to him and said, why not enter a second athlete? He wrote back LOL. So I said, all right, goodbye, because they know, but sometimes you just have to try, because
Mm.
if you don't push the door, you won't know it's open. So you have to be
So true. Mm.
you know, you have to be strong and you have to have confidence in what is it that you have done. And remember, it's a group of persons that look at on it, you know. So if I miss something, you know, somebody else will say, no, look at this, look at that, you know. So
Right.
um we're just have to hope for the best as we go along.
Well, Anthony, this has been an education, man, and certainly thanks for taking the time to join us here on John Sports Corner. But with looking now into 2027, um, is there anything that you have seen in 26 that you want to change in 27?
I'm going to check the mailbox and see if you send me the crystal ball, right? Yeah, they are. I don't want to say, you know, some of the things that we have noted because we have to assess if you change them, what impact it is going to have on something else,
Hmm.
because things can have a domino effect, right? But you know, there are a couple of things which you know is pretty standard internationally. All right, let me give you an example that we attempted this year. We have a screen in the warm-up area and screen televise the competition arena events. And so we attempted to put the call schedule on the same screen. So we had a split screen. Now, what happened is that we had to reduce the columns as much as possible, but the font was still too small. So
Hmm.
we have to, but it comes down to cost. We have to look, can we afford a second screen so that we have the call schedule up all the time? So what was happening is that when there is nothing happening in the stadium, we display the call schedule. Something is coming up, we take it down. Now,
Yeah.
the significance of the call schedule, we must remember that there are some schools that have a large support staff, and there are other schools where it's just one coach who does everything. No, it's a little challenging to be preparing your athlete for warm-ups, keeping track on the call time, and you're listening out to the audio to hear if they call the time. So if we can display the call time, you can always look up at any time to see when is the call, when is your athlete scheduled to go to the call room. So that is something that we have introduced, and we want to see if we can improve upon it. The other thing
Uh,
in the
mhm,
in the warm-up area, we can't necessarily hear the results all the while. So we had a common feed from the competition area into the warm-up area, because if there's an announcement and you hear your team has been disqualified, you have 30 minutes to write a protest. Now, if
mhm,
you can't hear, when you find out, it might be 29 minutes. Now, you can't tell the referee that you heard late.
mhm,
Because the announcers have a schedule, a call log. So they will tell you the announcement of the results for the 100-meter class 4 was at 1 o'clock. And they can, so when the referee gets a protest, the first thing he does is look to see when was this results announced. If it's over the half an hour, they're not going any further with it. It's
mhm.
outside the window. So that is why we need to get the PA system transmitted over the warm-up area. So those are some of the improvement that we try to make, which you might not notice it being a spectator, but it benefits the coach, right? So,
Right.
these are some of the things that we try to do every year. There are other. If you look on the long jump, we got real takeoff marks. So you don't count the steps and put on a piece of tape anymore. So you see a number. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
right. And we have it for the all horizontal jumps, and we have it for the javelin. It's not using a high jump because obviously there is, it could impede people. But the point is, we look at what is happening internationally and
Mhm.
bring champs up to that standard. So these small things, sorry, you have to be very observant. Um,
Mhm.
no, but the athlete will tell you, oh, it's a big help to us. But you understand seeing these little things on the side, with number one, number two, right? It might not have the level of significance that you'd want, right?
Right.
Those are some of the things that we will do, and as time go by, we are always on the lookout to see how we can enhance the product.
Something just came to mind, and I know this is probably not under your portfolio, but I'll mention it because I buy the package every year to watch the major meets down there, Gibson Relays, Champs, but particularly Champs. That when there's a break in coverage,
Yes.
rather than have a blank screen, why can't the folks put together maybe some kind of package from previous champs and show during that period until they come back to live coverage?
All right. I have a small insight into that. In some instances, they do, but maybe you gone for a beer at the time when it is being done. Um, but like for example, I did 2 interviews asking me to explain what happened in the call room and
Yeah.
the situation with the starters and so. That is a filler. And they also did, like the producer said, we need some backstory for champs. So
Hmm.
I have seen Dr. Jones, Gwen Jones, being interviewed, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
when they are played, I don't necessarily know because in the heat of the moment, although I have a screen because I need to see what is happening, sometimes the screen is there, you're not picking up on the fillers.
Yeah,
But
I actually saw some of them, and who was it? The gentleman from Kenya, Kenya
oh yes,
Olympic president or something like that.
yeah, he
Yeah,
visited.
yeah, I saw a couple, and I saw yours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um, Champs have all kind of personalities visiting, and because everybody all over the world, as long as you are into athletics, and even if you're not big into athletics, you have heard about Champs because
Mm-hmm.
I've gone to the States and people who normally have no interest in athletics, they say to me, I must come to Champs. Why you must
Mm-hmm.
come to Champs? Because I just hear it is fantastic. There is nowhere else like Champs. So
Yeah.
you we do have, and by the way, I was speaking to someone and they said to me that those tickets are blocked out, they are not for sale. And then they went on, I guess maybe they saw a curious look on my face. They went on to say there is a group of persons who have bought those same tickets for the last 40 years. So
Mm.
it's their property. You can you can't. You dare not sell those tickets. So you have
Yeah.
loyal fans, right? So
Yeah.
you have to cater for them. So yes, we do have that. And what we need to do is to try and encourage the youngsters, the school spirit, because some schools have it, but there is a famous school when you look in that corner, you see 80-year-old people coming to champs, struggling to come up this. They're coming to champs in their colors, right? So that is what, because it's a tradition. It's
Is that the school on the Bellevue side of North Street?
I don't know if you call it the Bellevue side. We call it the right side of North Street. There's another school that is not on the right side of North Street.
Anthony, thank you so much, man, for taking the time to give us an insight as to champs and preparation. And certainly, I do wish you all the best and much luck and success going forward. Thank you so much, Anthony.
All right, thank you for having me, and I trust that the viewers would have a better insight as to what happened behind the scenes for champs.
As I like to say when I close my program, via con Dios.